welcome to Unlock the Story. My name is Krystle and I am really excited to be starting a bit of a new series here on Unlock the Story. If you have watched us faithfully, or if you've even seen just a few episodes, you would know that typically I sit down with a guest or two and we take the time to unpack their personal journey of being an artist or examining their participation in a specific project. Well, this one is going to be a little bit different. This one, we are going to take a look at some of the books that have been written around art and creativity and take a bit of a dive into why you may want to pick up this book. So it's a bit of a big book review, personal story and experiences. Full disclaimer, I have read every book that I will recommend in this series. I have often taken notes on them. Some I've loved, some I haven't loved as much, but I think they're all worth bringing forth and bringing to you so you can see, is this a book that you would like to read? And sometimes we just need a really good summer read or fall read. So that's what this series is going to be about. So today we're going to start with one of the very first books that I ever read when it came to art and creativity and Christianity, and that is Madeline L'Engle's Walking on Water. If you have never heard of this book, maybe you don't even know who Madeline L'Engle is. She is the author of A Wrinkle in Time, amongst many other amazing children's novels. Maybe you've seen the film adaptation, which is not as good as the book. Madeline L'Engle wrote this, and it's kind of her own personal journey, her own way of answering the question of being an artist and a Christian. So really, what is this book about? In a quick nutshell, this book examines the question of what does it mean to be a Christian and an artist who is faithful to their craft, and how faith and art interact. Now, maybe that seems a little heady, a little difficult to follow, but trust me, she writes beautifully. And whether you're an artist yourself, whether you're someone who just truly, deeply appreciates art and creativity, I cannot recommend this book more. Like I said, this book was one of the first books that I read on the subject of art and creativity and being a Christian artist. And it has been very formative for me personally, and I highly, highly recommend it. So what did I take from this book the first time that I read it? Now, I will be honest, I read this many moons ago, so I had to really take a moment to reflect on this question and to think through how I would answer it. Thankfully, I also took some notes when I first read this book, so that helped me a lot. But what I took from this book the first time were the main elements, or maybe rather the main elements that stood out to me were the concepts of bad art equaling bad religion and the need to feed myself creatively. So first part, where does the bad art come from? Well, that comes from on page 18. Madeline L'Engle has a quote there that says, much so-called religious art is in fact bad art and therefore bad religion. And this really impacted me because I, and maybe you have had the same experience, I've experienced a lot of bad Christian art. And, L'Engle goes on to talk about how when we create something, we're not creating an exact or literal replica, but rather a representation of how we feel about the subject. So taking a quality or an element of our subject or person, and then exploring our reaction. And that takes a lot of vulnerability and messy questions and openness that sometimes we're just not as good at because we think we know the answers. And this really challenged me because it made me kind of have to take a step back, take a look at some of the things I created over the years and go like, was that bad art and therefore maybe bad religion? I would argue some of it probably was. Not all of it, because, we all have to start somewhere and we grow as we go. But there was definitely some things I created over the years that already knew the answers, or I was trying to just make it seem so perfect and say everything so, just so, that I didn't really leave room to really examine the subject, examine how did I really feel about it, and lead on this journey, and then whoever was experiencing the art go on the journey with me. So that was really, really impactful to me when I first read this book. The second concept I will talk about more in just a moment, but I also thought it would be kind of fun to read to you some of my favorite passages from this book. So I'm going to read from page 135. There is no denying that the artist is someone who is full of questions, who cries them out in great angst, who discovers rainbow answers in the darkness, and then rushes to the canvas or paper. An artist is someone who cannot test, who can never rest as long as there is one suffering creature in this world. Along with Plato's divine madness, there is also divine discontent, a longing to find the melody in the discords of chaos, the rhythm in a canocophia, the surprised smile in the time of stress or strain. And I love that. I love that. I love the encouraging of the questions. I love the passion that she's calling us to. And again, whether you're someone who creates, masterful pieces of artwork, or like myself, dabbles for fun in it, whether you're someone who loves gardening, there's such an exploration and journey that you can go on with your creativity and with what you are creating. And I love how this passage really encourages us to do that. Another one of my favorite passages is taken from page 188. Great art, great artists. What about the rest of us little people struggling with our typewriters and tubes of paint? The great ones are still the best mirrors for us all because the degree of the gift isn't what it's all about. It's like the presents under the Christmas tree. The ones which came from Woolsworth may be just as rejoiced over as the more expensive ones. And best of all are those which are handmade and which may have cost love rather than money. Perhaps it is something like the parable of the workers in the vineyard. Maybe those who worked through the heat of the day were the Michelangelos and the Leonardos and the Beethovens and the Tolstoys. Those who were able to work only 1 hour served their gift of work as best they could. And, as in Alice's Wonderland, everybody gets a prize. There is the same quality of joy in turning a perfect bowl on the potter's wheel as in painting the Sistine Chapel. The important thing is to recognize that our gift, no matter what the size, is indeed something given us for which we can take no credit, but which we may humbly serve, and in serving learn more wholeness, be offered wondrous newness. It's just so encouraging. It's so encouraging to think about whatever gift we have in whatever quantity, with whatever training or non-training. It matters. It's important. And however we use it is perfect. I'm not an overly emotional person, but hearing that just brings tears to my eyes, because so often I think we think that what we create isn't worthy enough. It's not good enough. We don't do it at the level that we want to do it. I can't say it the way I want to say it, or the way that I saw it in my mind isn't how it came out on paper. But that's not the point always. Yes, we can grow, and we should grow, and we can push ourselves into deeper creativity. And those are wonderful things that are necessary to continue growing and learning, right? That learning element. But there's serving the gift. And that comes first. That desire to put something down and just following that pull, that urge, and going and putting something down on that piece of paper. Yeah. So hopefully you're getting a bit of a taste as to why this book is worth picking up. It's one of the last questions I really wanted to kind of go over with you, or second last question is, do I reach for this book now? Why or why not? Yes. I reach for this book constantly. I am constantly picking it up, looking at passages I underlined. I reread a page or two, absorbing the challenges and the inspirational words that L'Engle penned so many years ago. I can't remember exactly when I read this book first time. I believe it was 2016, so that's going on like 7 years ago. And this book's been around for a lot longer, decades it's been around. But it is worth it. It is worth the read, 100%. So one of the other questions that I felt was really worth taking the time to think about and to examine in this series is, what has been my long-term takeaway and how has this book impacted me in my life and my work? So when I first read this book, it opened my eyes to a whole new world. You know, I started this series, Unlock the Story, Books That Can Shape Us, with this book very intentionally, because it was the first book, as I've already shared, it was the first book that I read about being an artist. And I had never before given thought to how art and faith can become one, and how art can be, as a Christian, a natural expression of our faith. Those are concepts and ideas that I just hadn't really considered that deeply or intentionally until I read this book. So, yeah. And when I said I would talk about the second concept that impacted me earlier, the idea of feeding myself, and she talks about this, about feeding your creativity and having that life that just pours in, where things are just pouring into you creatively. That was completely foreign to me before reading this book. I had never thought about the need to have like a creative well and to be purposefully putting things into it. You know, and that has really changed how I practice my craft and how I operate I would say on a daily basis. That has shifted me for sure. So that has also been something that has been a long-term impact and takeaway from this book. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this video, this little bit of a book review into books that can shape us. If you have not read Walking on Water, Reflections on Art and Faith by Madeline L'Engle, I highly, highly recommend that you do. If you have read it, please go into the description, into the chat box, into the comment section there, and leave me a note. Let me know what page has been one of your favorites, or maybe what concept and idea has really impacted you in your life journey. I would love to continue that conversation in there. I will be adding more of these books that can shape us into the series, and as I do so, I will update the description box of this video to include a playlist. So make sure you go into that description box, click that playlist, and you can watch all of the videos in this series. If you have enjoyed this, please do give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next one.